like, yeah, they don't give us, if y'all don't give us what we want, like, we sit out.
That's a possibility, for real.
The basketball community was taken by surprise when Angel Reese expressed strong concerns about the state of the WNBA, suggesting a potential boycott if players are not fairly compensated. This has brought renewed attention to the ongoing debate in women's sports regarding player pay and equity.
Average are just losing $25–30 million a year, and these women are coming, if we don't get what we want, if we don't get what we deserve, if you got what you deserve, you'd be paying to play.
Caitlin Clark offered a different perspective as the league reacted to the potential boycott. Rather than drawing comparisons between the WNBA and the NBA, she focused on the remarkable growth the women's game is currently experiencing.
If you understand media rights deals, if you got consent, there's no reason for a WNBA player ever in life compare the WNBA to the NBA, all right? Even as bad as the NBA's ratings have gotten, they're still better than the majority of all WNBA.
Have you noticed how much this difference in perspective reveals? It highlights the contrast between demanding higher pay and understanding the financial realities of building a successful sports league. So, what led us to this conclusion? Well, this video will break it all down for you.
Renee Carrington was on with Angel Reese on a podcast when Angel Reese sent a message out there threatening to set out. Good Lord.
Angel, you're absolutely right about her Unapologetically Angel podcast. Along with calling for increased pay, Reese even suggested the possibility of shutting down the WNBA if players don't receive fair compensation. Her bold statements have sent shockwaves through the basketball community.
They are. I need to get in the field.
You need to come to the
I need to get in the meetings because I'm hearing like, yeah, they don't give us, if they don't give us what we want, like, we sit out.
That's a possibility.
She used very straightforward language in her statement. Do you think that if we don't get what we want, WNBA players will start getting paid more? This direct threat of a boycott could have serious implications for the league. The fact that one of its newest stars is already considering walking away from the game adds even more tension to the situation, according to Reese, who has been actively involved in meetings surrounding the upcoming collective bargaining agreement. Rookies next season may earn more than current players. This agreement is a crucial part of professional sports as it determines player benefits, wage caps, and revenue sharing. Reese also expressed concern that these hardworking rookies might start receiving more lucrative offers despite just entering the league.
I can't.
Girl, y'all benefited from everything. Y'all youngins benefit from NIL.
What does that mean? We deserve more.
Of course.
Everybody.
I agree.
Everybody.
I agree with that.
But we gotta face the consequences.
But
There, we gotta get it up.
y'all gotta
like,
do something. Y'all gotta do something.
But the women coming in, what? Not this year, but next year. Or but the ones coming this year will still be in the rookie. The year after, they gonna get more. They probably gonna be making more than this.
At first glance, this might seem like a typical contract negotiation, especially with the WNBA growing at an unprecedented pace. But things aren't so simple. Attendance is climbing, and merchandise is flying off the shelves as women's basketball reaches record-breaking popularity.
You're going to risk ruining a good thing. The last thing they need is some sort of work.
But it doesn't seem like Angel Reese is fully acknowledging this reality. With the WNBA operating at a financial loss for 28 years and relying on continued support from the NBA to stay afloat, there's a massive gap, like the Grand Canyon, between player expectations and the league's financial reality.
Actually, anyway, this is just a bad look for the WNBA. Angel Reese just wants content for her podcast. She's playing checkers.
The numbers help paint a clearer picture. Despite the NBA's ongoing support, the WNBA still loses between $25 and $30 million each year. And since you can't distribute money that isn't there, these financial losses make any significant pay increases difficult to justify.
If we don't get what we want, if we don't get what we deserve, if you get what you deserve, you'd be paying to play.
In reality, Angel's approach highlights a fundamental misunderstanding of sports economics. Professional athletes are paid based on the revenue their leagues generate. It's why NFL players earn more than AAF players, Premier League footballers make more than those in MLS, and NBA players out-earn their WNBA counterparts. A player strike at this critical moment could actually stall the league's momentum. The WNBA is finally finding its footing after more than 3 decades of financial struggles, and current collective bargaining negotiations are crucial to shaping its future through 2026. Angel Reese's threat to boycott suggests she may be playing checkers when the situation calls for chess. That said, the league is making real progress. Arenas are filling up faster than ever. Sponsors are showing growing interest, and viewership is on the rise.
Of course, literally, this league has never turned a profit, ever. You guys know that. I have to keep bringing it up because a lot of people don't, believe it or not, they don't know that in the 28-year existence of this women's pro basketball league, it has been kept afloat because of the subsidization of the NBA and their owners, keeping it alive. Otherwise, it would have died a long time ago. Caitlin Clark would have never had a chance to.
When a rookie threatened to shut down Reed, the WNBA's main draw, it seemed like the league's contract dispute couldn't get any more intriguing. But when asked directly about the salary disparity between leagues, Caitlin Clark stepped in and fundamentally changed the conversation. Speaking at a cardiovascular research event in 2025, Clark demonstrated his business acumen by taking a completely different approach. He disagreed with the basic premise of comparing leagues, offering a much more reasonable perspective than simply restating demands for immediate salary increases.
So, enter in Caitlin Clark. And I'm going to tell you, very solid answer from Caitlin Clark because she's asked about comparing the WNBA to the NBA when it comes to things like salary. And Caitlin Clark, well, let's just say she does.
Whoa, this place is packed. I think comparing the NBA and WNBA is unfair. You can immediately see how differently she's handling the situation, Clark said, shifting the conversation from empty demands to something much more constructive. He focused on the incredible progress happening right now, rather than pushing for things that aren't yet a reality. Clark also emphasized the growth of women's basketball, adding, "I think where the WNBA is right now is pretty incredible."
Caitlin Clark, comparisons between the league is pointless. Bravo. Somebody's got a brain. She says she is focused on how the WNBA can keep growing. Quote, "I'm not huge on comparing the WNBA to the NBA. I don't think that's fair." Wow, lot everywhere.
Rather than making demands, the player with the most influence is praising and acknowledging the progress, which is not only a smart business move, but also great PR.
I'm not huge on comparing the WNBA to the NBA. I don't really think that's fair. Obviously, I think where the WNBA is right now is pretty incredible. I mean, a lot of people, or most people, would not believe it's the place that it is right now. So I think when people always ask me this question, where I think it'll be in 5 years, is it's hard for me to answer because people didn't even think we'd be right here, right now. And I think really
While she may have been the most vocal advocate for higher spending, she's seeing the bigger picture and understands that long-term wage increases can only follow revenue growth, not precede it. She's largely responsible for this unexpected attention, which makes her response even more impressive. However, Clark didn't just say nice things. She also provided valuable insights into the actual salary differences across the leagues.
Our TV numbers when we're on national television, we're averaging over 1 million viewers or whatever it is. All-Star Game, I think, was over 4 million viewers. It's really great numbers. So the more opportunities we're given.
She also highlighted the differences in the game schedule, noting that the WNBA's 40-game season, set to expand to 44 games next year, is far less demanding than the NBA's. This shows she understands the nuanced relationship between revenue, workload, and compensation, nuances that are often overlooked in difficult salary comparisons. Clark also discussed the league's ambitious expansion plans, pointing out that 2 new teams are expected to join next season, with more potentially on the way. This expansion addresses one of the league's major challenges. More teams mean more games, greater fan engagement, increased sponsorship opportunities, and ultimately, higher revenue for players. As a result, you can't raise player compensation without growing the overall pie. The most telling aspects of Clark's perspective are her focus on the league's upward trajectory and her firm belief in the WNBA's limitless future. Rather than making unrealistic claims, she is showing a growth mindset that takes into account the realities of sports economics, how increased viewership leads to more lucrative sponsorships, which boost revenue and, eventually, player salary.
Huge thing that a lot of people don't talk about, right? The NBA plays probably more than double. WNBA will play 44 next year, 40 they've just played. I think they've only been doing that a few seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the NBA also has a much longer playoff. They've got a lot more games on TV, a lot more opportunity for TV ratings, which means media rights, ad revenue, and that is what allows these leagues to pay the salary.
Have you noticed the key differences between the two approaches? Regardless of the economic situation, one perspective seeks immediate gratification. In contrast, Clark emphasizes that sustainable growth requires patience, determination, and strategic planning. She plays chess, while others are stuck playing checkers. The financial difference between the two leagues is staggering. One makes 40 times more than the other. This massive revenue gap has a direct impact on salary levels. NBA players start at $64,500, while the minimum salary is $1.2 million. When you look at the hard data, it's clear how Clark's growth-focused strategy contrasts with those who demand immediate NBA-level pay. How can the WNBA possibly match NBA salaries when its revenue is only $200 million compared to the NBA's $8 billion? Salary ranges will naturally reflect this disparity in revenue. It's an economic reality, not a question of gender inequality.
It's all still her. All right, and that's who everybody is tuned into. It is not anybody. Let's not get confused. Rating, revenue, the whole nine.
Imagine you have two coffee shops on the same street. One serves 40 customers a day, while the other serves 1,600. Do you think the baristas at both locations would receive the same pay? Of course not. And that's essentially what the comparison between the NBA and WNBA boils down to.
Is golden, and sometimes less is more when it comes to players talking and using their platform and getting out their...
Angel Reese is essentially demanding double the pay for half the effort while bringing in a much smaller share of the revenue when she requests NBA-level compensation. This logic applies across all sports. It's like expecting someone who works 20 hours a week to earn the same amount as someone who works 40 hours, a comparison that reflects the reality of NBA players putting in 40 hours a season. This difference in workload helps clarify the compensation issue.
Agent says, talks about she's part of a larger player body. They all need to be paid more. Why do they need to be paid more? Can we just use math, use basic economics, use a little common sense and understand what is going on?
Consider soccer. The English Premier League pays its players significantly more than Major League Soccer, even though both leagues feature men kicking into nets. This disparity exists because the EPL generates billions of dollars in revenue, far more than MLS. Since gender has no impact on either league, it's remarkable that WNBA players aren't earning even less. Without the NBA's long-standing support of the Women's League, the minimum salary of $64,500 could be much lower.
The whole idea they need is they're all basing it on the men versus women thing, which is nonsense.
Clark's strategy becomes even more impressive when you consider the numbers. She understands that league expansion must come before higher pay. According to Clark, the key is to expand the number of teams, sponsors, and spectators. This is the only practical way to grow. The WNBA is just beginning to gain traction, and Angel Reese's boycott threat could undo all of that progress. However, the league recently signed a new media rights deal that could triple the value of their current agreement. This kind of growth is what ultimately leads to higher salaries.
Once again, it's all about television revenue. That is all this is about. That's why the NFL, the salaries are high there. Major League Baseball, it's all about influx of television money, either regional broadcast, whatever. It's from how all this. I mean, when the Ion Network is drawing like 1 billion views off of a WNBA game.
Ironically, those who are embracing a more systematic approach, realizing that building anything lasting requires time and clever growth strategies rather than threats and demands, are the ones who stand to benefit the most from a boycott. Should we protest now, or should we wait for the right moment? Did you note that the WNBA's collective bargaining talks and the new media rights contract are scheduled for 2026 in the Clark versus Reese argument? It is anticipated that this crucial alignment will significantly increase the league's revenue. Celebrities like Clark generate viewership, and for a brief moment, it's clear that Jason is taking things seriously. Caitlin has not heard anything this offseason.
WNBA contract stands at $64,154, while in the NBA it's $1.16 million. But then stop with the NBA comparisons. All this does is turn reasonable people off, because you can't compare a league that's been around much longer that generate something like $8 billion a year in revenue versus a league that's maybe hit 200 million for the first time ever. It's absurd to compare the two. Now, I think the CBA, if they get it done, will start in 2026, which I believe is the same year that the new media rights deal kicks in as.
It makes perfect sense for Clark to be in the negotiation room. Rather than threatening boycotts now, players should be strategically preparing for upcoming discussions when they will actually have leverage. Her forward-thinking approach could help ensure significant returns once the funds are available.
But again, the whole thing is on shaky ground without Caitlin Clark. The other thing I would add too is get her in these negotiations. And I'm not even saying this in terms of, she's the face of the league and she can, go in there and these demands and get things done. And I'm not saying because she knows all the ins and outs of how a multi-$100 billion professional basketball league runs or any of that, but just in terms of her reasonableness, how well-spoken she is, make her the face, make her the spokesperson in the negotiations. You can do all your stuff as players in this and that, but then have Caitlin.
T makes perfect sense for Clark to be in the negotiation room. Instead of threatening boycotts now, players should be strategically preparing for upcoming discussions when they will actually have leverage. Her innovative approach could help secure higher returns once the funds are available.